I'm Adam Meyer of Mill City Lutheran in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and in this video I'm going to be doing another Tru Oil conversion on a Stratocaster neck. This job is going to be much different. In the previous video, it was a video I didn't have any narration going on. It was just stripping the poly off, putting some oil on, putting back on the guitar, and that's what the customer wanted. This one, we have actually an ESP guitar. Forgetting the year on this, so like very late 80s or early 90s. Really nice guitar, but the customer has found an SRV Stratocaster neck. Fits on, everything scales out correctly, really likes how it plays. Doesn't like the feel of the neck though. There's a slight asymmetry to this. Don't know if that was, I don't know right off the top of my head if there was with the SRV necks or not. But that's kind of bothering the customer a little bit. He wants it to feel more like the original ESP neck. There are some issues with this. That's why he's replacing it. So I'm going to go through measuring the size of this and the curvature of the neck, the shape, and trying to mimic that with this SRV neck. There's a second neck here for further reference, but we probably won't be, using this neck at all. But also the idea on this one, he likes the look of this. Does not like the poly finish on it. Gets stuck on it. His hand sticks to it. So I will be staining this neck before I put the Tru Oil on. The idea is that, you can't make Tru Oil look real shiny like this. You can buff it and stuff. But the idea is we keep the color and it's more discreet than the other job I did. I'm trying to sort of hide any work being done. So first thing to do is get the neck off and scrape off all the finish on here. Then we'll move on to reshaping it. Alright, got the neck off the guitar. And there's a few methods of stripping this. This is not nitrocellulose lacquer, so you cannot use thinner or acetone on it and get anything come off. This is a polyurethane finish. It's either heat gun, sanding it, or I like to use a razor blade. Just with the heat gun, it'll bubble up, and the idea is I'm not taking the finish off the entire guitar. I don't like the idea of kind of coming out in this direction and possibly having finish bubble up and come loose past where I want to remove it. With sanding, it's going to take forever and it's going to be real dusty. Just a razor blade. Check that out. Quick and easy. Not through the finish yet, but just we've got all this instead of a bunch of dust, so it's, I don't know, anybody out there thinking to do this, give it a shot. I'm right there, I'm starting to go through a little bit, so you of course don't want to keep in the same spot once you get to the wood. You want to keep moving. See right there? That's all it takes. I'm to the wood already. So I'm just going to follow through and do a bunch of this, and then I'll switch over to sandpaper once I have the bulk of this removed. Here you go. We've got the finish scraped off. I sanded it somewhat. It's not perfectly done because we got to do some reshaping. So I'm not going to put the time into sanding this perfectly or getting the edges finalized. We got to reshape this first. So reminder, we are trying to copy how this neck feels. If we can't achieve that, then we've got a third option here, but everything's looking like this will be what we can achieve here. So what I'm going to do is I need to make sure that we've got the overall thickness. So I'll be using my calipers, and of course when I do any of this with the tools, I'll put tape on the back because this may be dinged up, but it's not my property. You got to make sure that you're careful of this stuff. But we'll get the overall thickness with calipers at various points on here. I will then copy that thickness by sanding the back of this neck to get to that same thickness. Then I have another tool here, and there are variations of this. I really don't know what it's called. I bought this so long ago, I forget what the name is. But the idea is, once again, tape on that neck, and I will slowly press this down to get that profile on there, and then I can copy onto different necks and get that same shape. You know, I'm doing this by hand. I'll get it pretty close, but exactly the same is probably beyond, you know, what human hands can actually do. But as you can see, I can get an idea of what's different about these necks. So that is our next, well, our next step is getting the thickness the same and then recontouring the neck to be the same. So I'm going to start right where the third dot is. Lock my calipers in so it doesn't change on me. And we are pretty much the same. So I'm going to come down here. I'll do like the 10th fret. Compare that, and that is pretty much the same as well. So the step of thinning the neck down to be the same thickness of this, we can skip that. The finish was thick enough that it made up the difference. Getting that finish off got us pretty much to the same. We'll be doing, like I said, the oil finish on this was rather thin, so I don't really have to worry about any of that. So now it's time to do the contour. So I'm going right behind the 2nd fret here. Now put a board down to kind of help keep this consistent. There we go. And a little bit wider way out here on both sides, along just below the fingerboard. Below or above, whichever way you'd say this, but you can see I can't quite bring this all the way down before I'm touching on the edges. So I'm going to skim along right there just a little bit. I will be double checking the profile higher up on the neck as well. And just to making sure that all the way up, just remove a little bit, kind of right where the seam between the fingerboard and the maple is. Now here's another part of this this neck profile that the customer wanted changed. I'll kind of zero this out. So there are 2 points. I'm not only going to bring in along the fingerboards. If you notice how this slopes more than this side. He was complaining that this felt a little asymmetrical. That would be here. So not only am I going to shave along the edge of the fingerboard, well, below the fingerboard, the maple part in this area, but I'm going to take a little bit of this down. It's not much. I don't know if you can even really see that on the camera. But it is a little asymmetrical, almost, it's not flat over here, but it's definitely sloping down a lot quicker. So now to do this, I'm going to not use any of my neck carving tools because these are just going to be way too coarse, and I'm going to take this down past where I want to go. I want to just creep towards matching the other neck. So I'm just using some, coarse sandpaper. This is like 150 grit on a little leveling bar, and I'll just be, sanding little by little, and then continuing to compare against the other neck. So we've got this all shaped how the customer wants. The next thing is he doesn't want it to look like I've done this conversion. So I'm going to stain it this similar color to the color that was added to the finish here. And then I'm going to do Tru Oil over it. What I've had success with is I'll use a stain. Usually it's just this vintage amber stain. You just mix it with some alcohol, put it directly on the wood, and then I'll do a light coat of oil just to kind of get it to set. If you put it on, you start rubbing, you can actually kind of pull the color out and you end up with like a blotchy looking result. So the idea is I get the stain put on, stain directly on the wood. You might have slight variations because of the grain of the wood, but I find that my personal preference, it comes out a little better than trying to mix the stain into the oil. I just haven't had good results that way. Other people may have, that's fine, but this is the way I'm going to do this because this is what's easiest for me to do. So I just don't want to get a bunch of oil all over the fingerboard, just a couple strips of tape down the side. Just going to stain this up, put on that first light coat, and we'll take a look at what we have. Scrap piece of maple here, just as something to do some tests on. And I already did a little batch of just the vintage amber, no other colors in it. And it's on its own, it looks fine, but once I put the original finish next to it, that's just not right. It's a little brown. It needs a touch of orange. So as you can see, I added just a little bit of orange to the mixture and then thinned it out a little bit too. Just to compare, that's a lot better, much closer. Color in the oil. I have an established color that I'm trying to match. If I put color into the oil as I build coats, it will get darker and darker, and I need to be able to sand or steel wool between coats, which is going to make it more or less match the established color here. So that's why I stained the wood instead of putting color into the oil. Much easier to get that match and have it stick. So put on the oil, put on a light coat first to get it to hold. I've built up several coats before doing any sanding, and just like if I was doing the finish on a guitar body, or if this was like a regular gloss finish, I'm starting off with a more coarse steel wool, and I'll eventually end on either a 4-aught, or I've even found some 5-aught steel wool. to get that real smooth feel. I will also come out a little bit onto the finish to help that transition from the matte oil finish into the gloss. And once I'm done with this, I'll show you put on a coat of wax to make it feel real slick. Alright, this is really smooth now. Gone through and steel wooled for the last time. Also, if you find any spots that are a little kind of pebbly or rough feeling, very lightly sand them with a high grit sandpaper, just to make sure that it's got a real nice and glassy feel here. Then the last thing I like to do, and I'll let this sit for a day or so if possible, use the wax. Wax after the oil. See if this will show up on my camera here. Just put a little bit on a rag, paper towel, or whatever. It won't necessarily get shiny, but it definitely makes this feel real slick. Just keep rubbing it in. You can add more coats if you want, just follow the instructions on the bottle. I'm also going a little past where I oiled onto the previous finish that I scuffed up a little bit just to kind of blend in. It's not scuffed looking, it's I sanded it with a high grit sandpaper just to kind of help it blend, create a transfer between the oiled part of the neck and the glossy peg head and heel. There we go. We've got a Stevie Ray Vaughan neck. It's actually put on an ESP body, and it you can find where the edges are between the oil finish and the original polyester finish or acrylic finish, whatever they were spraying on this. Yeah, it's kind of like a parts caster. Customer wanted this reshaped. Really loved the fingerboard radius and the frets, but the rest of the neck was just too big. So reshape it, add some color, because some people like it when it just looks like it's raw wood, that it's just bare. I have a video I posted where I, sort of a joke, an ASMR video, but I stripped the finish off and just put oil finish on, no coloring. Many people like it that way. Someday I will post a video where I will age the wood and then put finish on. Just kind of look like somebody's worn through it, because you can kind of fake that as well. I do have a video where I did that to a Telecaster body, so I'll add a little link to that if you want to see that. It's a pretty simple process. Like I explained before, if you're adding color to the oil as you put coats on, it will get darker and darker. If you need to sand, then you're going to have spots that are going to be lighter and lighter. So this is just the way I like to do it. You want to do it another way, go right ahead. But you want to lock in that color coat first. If you're rubbing on it a lot, you're going to be pulling the color out. You're going to be smearing it around. So it just kind of like a real light glaze that first time, and then build some uncolored coats on top of it before you start to do any sort of leveling and steel wooling or sanding of this. So yeah, turned out great. Time to get this back to the customer. If you have any questions about this or any other projects in my video catalog, you can either leave a comment or contact me directly. My contact information is the About section of my channel, and we'll see you next time. Go, 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 go. Play jazz, play jazz. Play jazz. Play jazz. Come on, play some jazz.